Yes, hello. I want to talk about World IBD Day as a case study of advocacy that we've done at EFCA. For those of you who might not have heard of World IBD Day, I just wanted to give you a brief introduction. World IBD Day is marked every year on 19th of May. And it's led by patient associations representing 38 countries on 4 continents. It's also including all our EFCA members, which is 28 countries in the European Union. And it's a relatively new World Day. We set it up around 6-7 years ago when we met at Digestive Disease Weeks, which is a huge medical congress, where we met with our colleagues from Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America, from Canada, from Australia and Brazil, and EFCA. And we decided it was a very good idea to fix a common date where we can put our efforts together in raising awareness of IBD and in trying to raise policy concerns that we might have. So it's a relatively new day, but I have to say in the last few years the interest has grown enormously, and we've been contacted from associations but also from individuals with IBD who want to be part of this World IBD Day. Last year we had contacts from South Africa, from South Korea, from the Bahamas. So I think it shows that a World Day of a disease is a very good means of raising awareness of the disease. And I think it's a very good tool for advocacy. It's easy to attract media attention on that day. It's also a good opportunity to spread information about the disease and any policy concerns you might have. And I think there's also a solidarity factor on that day, because it's easier to engage volunteers and the public around a common theme. And I want to, as an example, we've done many activities around World IBD Day, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit, because we're talking about advocacy with policymakers, a campaign we did on equal rights for citizens with IBD. It was a project that lasted over 18 months, and we targeted the members of the European Parliament, included an organization of a series of events in the European Parliament within the framework of World IBD Day. We launched a public consultation to set up a set of recommendations, and the objectives of the campaign were to raise awareness of IBD amongst key policymakers, EU policymakers, and in particular we wanted to target the MEPs, which are the members of the European Parliament. We wanted to ensure that the needs of IBD patients were heard and included in EU policies. And we heard yesterday that the levels of health policies it's more delegated to the member state, but there are still areas within the EU where we could influence. And we wanted to, of course, create a group of MEPs that are supporting our cause of EFCA, which in a general word is to improve the quality of life of people with IBD, not only in Europe, but beyond Europe as well. In the first year, in the phase 1, we organized a kick-off meeting on World IBD Day in the European Parliament. And we presented the results of the impact study. The impact study is a survey that EFCA carried out in the year before. It was a Europe-wide study with 6,000 respondents from people with IBD. And it looked at the impact of IBD not only on the health issues, but also on social and economic issues, looking at things like accessing the labor market, education, forming relationships. It looked at more at the quality of life of people with IBD. And the results of the study were quite worrying, because we found there were striking health, social, and economic inequalities within the European countries that participated as concerns the access to care, the length of diagnosis, the availability of specialist care available, but also the access to labor market and support during educational years. So here you have a picture of the kickoff meeting. It was a small event. We had the patient representatives, and we had some members of the European Parliament. And here you have, you can see on the left our chairman, Marco Greco, and on the right you have MEP Sergio Cofferati, who was supporting our cause. And as we mentioned previously, this was due to setting up several meetings with him previously, explaining our mission, explaining our concerns, and he was very willing to promote our cause, and he hosted the meeting in the Parliament. The following year, we organized a follow-up meeting in the European Parliament, but at this stage we decided it was important to also include the medical profession. And we're very pleased to involve the ECHO, which is the European Crohn's and Colitis Organization. And we also had representatives from the United European Gastroenterology Federation, who were very keen to be part of this stakeholder group. They were also together launching a public consultation on that day to elaborate a set of policy recommendations which run for several months. And we sort of presented the outcomes of this consultation at a final conference which took place 6 months later, again in the European Parliament, under the title Equal Rights for Citizens with IBD. We chose this title because it was the year of the European citizens, so it gave us a synergy with activities around that year. At the final conference, the Equal Rights for Citizens with IBD, we had arranged 3 panel discussions looking at 3 main issues that came out of the impact survey. The first one dealt with employment and the labor market, and we had some very interesting presentations from the European Commission looking at anti-discriminatory measures for people with disabilities. We also had, as was mentioned previously, we ensured that there was a patient testimonial. I think we had Eva from Norway talking about her experiences of what it was like to enter the labor market with a chronic disease. So it gave a very compelling story to the case. The second panel had a more scientific background where we asked the doctors of the stakeholderships to stress that, that there was more need for equal access to IBD healthcare, and also there was a stronger need for adequate research into the disease. And finally, we had a special panel on youth and education with presentations from the European Agency for Development in Special Needs Education. We had some of the IBD nurses talking about how to deal with the transition from child to adolescent to adult IBD care. And again, we made sure that we had a patient testimonial, and it was our former FK youth leader who gave a very interesting speech on what it was like to grow up with IBD as a teenager. You have some pictures from the conference. If we look at the positive results, we managed through this. It was a very lengthy process. It was, as we mentioned before, it wasn't just one meeting. It really required several meetings, not just conference, but also individual meetings with the MEPs. But in the end, we managed to create a network of MEPs that are supporting our cause. They launched a parliamentary questions on the rights of people living with IBD. A parliamentary question is something that is being addressed to the European Commission and to the Council of Ministers, which can follow up with a debate. We launched the public consultation and elaborated a set of recommendations for the rights of people with IBD. We created greater awareness of the impact of the disease, and we also created strong support for better integrating the rights of people with IBD. As a sort of side effect as well, I think our links with the European Commission were also strengthened. They had a strong participation in the final conference, and it opened us also ways to advocate more with the European Commission. I want to give some examples. I mean, I would have liked that everyone could present their own examples, but I think we don't have the time at the moment because we still have to go into the hardcore of the program. But I picked out a couple of examples. Norway, they arranged on World IBD Day a meeting on a popular breakfast television to show and to raise awareness about IBD. And I think that the fact that it was at a very popular spot gave them a lot of visibility on that day. In New Zealand, they did a similar event as we did. They organized a meeting with the with the New Zealand Parliament, where they presented the outcomes of their impact study. They also copied the idea of the impact study for their country-specific campaign. In Poland, I think it was very interesting. They tried to attract attention from the public and also from policymakers. They arranged a toilet paper battle, which took place in several cities around Poland. And I think it was a very innovative way to try and get the attention from the public and also from the media. And in Israel, I know that they had meetings with the Minister of Health, and they wanted to discuss several projects actually regulating biosimilars, reducing exposure of CT radiation, and strengthening IBD centers around the country. Now, just briefly talking about what's in store for World IBD Day 2016. On the level of EFCA, we want to continue with our IBD awareness raising campaign. We've been now, this is the third year that we're going to participate in the 20-kilometer marathon. And we got together a group of EFCA runners, which consists of IBD patients, very sporty IBD patients. We also have got some physicians and representatives from other organizations that have joined us. Also, you've seen the magazines on the tables. This is actually one of our board members running the race, and you'll have an article about the event that's sitting over there. And we will be doing the same this year. So every year the group is growing bigger, and it's a good way to raise awareness. We have an information stand as well, where we hand out information about IBD. On the global level, which we are coordinating at EFCA, we have decided on a social media campaign entitled Improving Quality of Life for People with IBD. We decided on the social media campaign because we wanted that also the smaller association would be able to participate in this campaign, as it is a cost-effective campaign. And it consists in illuminating famous landmarks in purple. Purple is the color of World IBD Day. Some of the organizations that have the resources will also try to organize some information events around this day. And as I said, it will have a very strong social media component. We have the hashtag United We Stand 2016. This is also the motto of our organization. And I'm very happy to already hear from some of our members that they've got some agreements to already light up some famous buildings. In Brussels, we have I don't know if you know Mannequin Piss. It's a very small statue, but it's a very popular landmark of Brussels. And we've arranged with the city council that we can dress him up in a purple suit. So this will be the Brussels side. It's that high, yes. But he's very popular and well-liked, so. Okay, that was it. It was very brief. It was an example of how we've done advocacy at the European level. You have the website of World IBD Day, where you can have a lot of information. I mean, I've just given you 4 examples, but there's an enormous amount of information of what people have done, and some of them have been very, very successful in raising media attention. Thank you very much.
Take a couple of minutes to tell you something that I think is of interest to all the colleagues in the room, and they may apply it in their own country. You talked about equal rights for citizens with IBD, and you talked about employment and the labor market. Okay, in Cyprus, we have done something that we consider very successful and very good for the patients. We approached the Ministry of Labor, and we asked them to subsidize employers who will employ IBD patients, and eventually we extended it to chronic disease patients. And we managed to get money from the European Social Fund. They will apply the program, which is starting this month. They will cover 70% of the salary of the people for 1 year, and they would be prepared, if it's successful, to extend it for another year. And I'm sure this is very good for the patients, because we all know that patients with chronic diseases, they can be skillful, they can be very good performance on any job. And some of them, we are sure that will become permanent employees and they will be helped tremendously. So as an idea, I think anybody could apply. The European Social Fund is there, and it's an area that they really support. I thought it would be interesting. Thank you.
Anyone else has any questions or comments? I think it's a very interesting initiative, and maybe we'll ask you to present it at some conference.
Thanks very much. It was really interesting to hear, and I just wanted to highlight particularly the links you made between the local action, the national action, and the EU level action. And I think given particularly what Tessa said yesterday, and also given that the Sustainable Development Goals have been signed off by all the UN member states and agreed across the EU, and yet as Tessa said, at the EU level, there is very little about targets for health. So it will continue to be really important to build the links between other areas of social life and well-being. So the fact that you'd already made the links in terms of work, education, quality of life, I think will have real benefits going forward as well.
No, I think then we move on with the program. Brian, do you want to introduce the next session?